Welcome to today's lesson. We're going to be learning a new construction, construction 6, the division of a line segment into equal segments without measuring. Now we're going to focus particularly on looking at dividing a line segment into 3 equal parts, as this is the most common asked question in the junior cycle. However, this method works for any number of equal segments, be it 2, 4, 5, 6 or more. For this construction, you're going to need a number of pieces of equipment. You'll need your compass with a sharp pencil and make sure that it is correctly fitted, that your compass is not wobbling and that the needle point and the point of your pencil line up nicely. You're also going to need a set square, it doesn't matter which one, and another straight edge, and I find that a ruler is really good for it. However, you will not be using the measurements on the ruler, and that's really important. You'll also need a pen then to label any letters, any points, and you may need a rubber if you make a mistake. Remembering though that we never rub out construction workings. Okay, so let's see how it is done. So you'll be given a line segment. Now remember what a line segment is. It's where we have 2 endpoints. So we have here endpoint A and endpoint B. So we're going to be dividing this particular one into 3 equal sections. Now, if it wasn't a construction, then we might measure the entire thing and divide it into 3, and then we would know where to put 2 points to separate the 3 parts. But that would not be the correct way to go about a construction. You would lose all of your attempt marks for correctly constructing. Now, like with all constructions, we start off with a little sketch. So here's my sketch. So as you can see, we have our 2 original endpoints, A and B. And for us to be able to clearly identify 3 sections of this segment that are equal in measurement, then we're actually going to be adding in 2 further points on the original line segment. So let's see how we do it. Now, it's worth noting that this is actually one of the more difficult constructions. So if you need to watch the video and re-watch it many times, then that's absolutely fine. So we're going to start off first of all with one of our straight edges. It doesn't matter whether I use the set square or the ruler. And we're going to draw a line going off at an angle. It doesn't have to be a set measurement of an angle, but it may be like an acute line going down from the one end point. So I'm going from A here, and most of my construction workings are going to be underneath the diagram this time. A lot of the previous constructions we had things above and below. All of this one is going to go underneath. Okay, so you carefully line up your end point with your pencil and you're going to draw this diagonal line then, this construction line. And it does need to be quite long because we're going to be drawing several arcs with our compass on it. In fact, we're going to be drawing the same amount of arcs as there are number of equal parts. So as we need to make 3 equal parts, we're going to be using this line to draw 3 sweeps of our compass moving down with each one. So it does need to be quite big, something like this. Now, again, because of the fact that we're going to be moving down this line 3 times, then we're going to be opening our compass to a width where it's not going to slip, where it's quite sturdy, but not too big, so that we can actually move down 3 times. So let's demonstrate to you and understand what I mean by that. So I've fixed my compass width to a length that I'm happy with. So it's something like this, not too wide. And I'm going to start by putting the point of my needle on my end point, the same end point that I've just drawn this line down from. And then I'm going to sweep across just the construction line, not my original line segment. And that will create my first arc. There we have it. Now, like with all constructions, if we have created an intersection that we're going to use later, then that's an important point. So where it has intersected my arc and my construction line, I'm going to give that a new capital letter and I'm going to use C. Now, without changing my compass width, I'm going to do the exact same thing again, but this time instead of putting my point on A, I'm going to put my point on the C and again draw my arc across my construction line. And there we go. And just as we did before, we will label where it intersects with a new letter again. So I'm going to give it D. And we have to do this one more time because we are dividing into 3 parts. So we're going to do this 3 times, creating 3 arcs. So this time my point will be on D and sweep across my construction line. And lastly, we label that one as well, another new letter. And again, I'm going to make sure it's a capital and it's E. Once we've created the amount of construction arcs that we require, so we needed 3, we will then connect that lowest point, so E in this case, we're going to connect it with the other end point of our original line segment. So that's with B. So I'm going to use my straight edge, make sure that I really line up this point E then with my B, and I'm going to connect then with my pencil through. So careful not to move my ruler. I have created that connection with that lowest point on our construction line and the other end point of our original line segment. Now this is where it gets quite tricky. So please take time to make sure that you don't slip, that you're nice and neat and accurate. And you're going to need your ruler and your set square. Okay, so this is quite tricky. I'm going to put my ruler exactly level with the line that we've just created, but I'm just going to push it down a little bit more, like so. And the reason for that is that I'm going to be pushing my set square against it so that there's no gap in between the set square and the ruler. And it's really important that we keep it nice and tight. And that's because whilst the set square is now fixed into that position, I'm then going to move my ruler along the length of the set square up until I meet the point D. So I'm going to push my ruler along the edge of this set square so it will run along it nicely like this. That's why it's really important that you keep your one hand firmly on your set square so it doesn't move, and you'll see that the ruler is still perfectly in line there with that line segment we created from E to B. So we're going to move it up until we get to our middle point, in this case, D. And once we get there, then we're going to use our pencil to connect that point up to our original line segment. Okay, now what we have actually done is we have found the exact location for this point here that we decided, well, in my sketch I gave that a D, but I've already used a D down here, so I'm going to call it another letter and I will call it then F. Okay, now we must do it once more. So your set square is still in the same position. Let's just double check. So you're firmly pressed on the paper, you haven't moved. Look, that's still perfectly in line. We move across, that one's still perfectly in line. And we're going to do it one last time then, connecting our first arced point of intersection. So that's C in this case, with the line segment up. So drawing your pencil again, making sure that the pencil is exactly on that point up to the original line segment. And there we go. And now we have created our last and final new point, and I'm going to call this one now G. Now you're actually done. You have divided AB into 3 smaller line segments, each of which will be equal in measurement. Now, of course, you can verify your answer then by using your ruler and measuring the entire distance, which you'll see here is 10 centimetres. If I put it, there we are, so that you can see the centimetres. And then each one is 3 1/3, which is perfectly into 3/3. And that's it. So we will have a look at it another 2 times using different displays, which will appeal to different people's visual understanding. So please be patient and try to watch the other 2 demonstrations on the computer. Your first letter to record in your exercise copy is the letter L. Okay, so whilst we are watching this demonstration, I would like you to also, alongside it, create your own Construction 6 into your notes copy. So please make sure that you have your heading, and you can then pause, complete each step as you see them, and then continue to press play. So you're going to have to first of all set up your original line segment. In this case, it's AB. Remember that most of your construction is going to be underneath it, so leave enough space in your copy underneath, and always use a pencil, sharp pencil, and a ruler. Remember, constructions have to be really accurate. Okay, so once you have drawn your original line segment, you're going to draw a ray then, which goes at an angle from the one end point down underneath the line segment. Now you're going to use your compass, open it up to a certain width, not too big, enough for you to be able to move that width down your construction line 3 times. You put your point on A and you make your first arc on the construction line only. You then lift your compass and do the same thing again, but placing your point now on your new construction line where the arc you just created intersects it. And you're going to do it then one more time because we are dividing this line segment into 3 equal parts. Now please note, if you were to divide it into 4 parts, you would simply go one more time. If you were doing it into 2 parts, you would just do it twice. But of course, remember that if you are asked to divide a line segment into 2 equal parts, then that's also asking you for the bisector, which we learned previously in an earlier construction could be done in a much more simpler way. Okay, so let's continue. Once you've got your last arc created, you're now going to connect that point with the other end point, which is B in this particular example. Here's the tricky bit. Being very careful to line up your newly created line with your set square and your ruler, keeping them really tight against each other so there's no gap here. You're not going to slightly lift. They have to be really pressed down firmly. So this, whichever you are using down the bottom here, is going to be your guide, and you can move the other instrument then along that guide at the correct angle. And you're moving it until you reach the other 2 points, each time then drawing up at the same angle as you had done this first one. Once you reach your line segment, you'll notice that this demonstration stops exactly at it. But don't worry if you go beyond it, because remember, it's a construction line, so the examiner is wanting to see that you have chosen this method. Lastly, we need to then label our new points, and we can verify our measurements if required using a ruler. So there you have it. So please be sure to make sure you have your steps as well as your construction in your notes copy. Your second letter to record in your exercise copy is the letter W. Each time we practice, which you will get plenty of chance to do with the exercise I've set you, but also watching it being done as well, gives you another chance to learn it. So let's have a look at it one last time in a different manner of form. There's our original line segment. We're going to draw a ray down. We're then going to place the compass needle point on A, and we're going to sweep across that ray we just created. We're then not going to change the compass width. We're going to simply do the same thing again, but from our newly created intersected arc and ray, and then one more time again. The same number of times as segments we need to divide our segment into. Now we're using each of those points, so they're part of our construction, so we will need to label them, and they're always capital letters, and ones that we haven't yet used. Now we need to use a straight edge to draw a line then from our lowest point on our constructed ray up to the other end point, which in this case is B. Using the set square and our straight edge, we're going to line them up with that last lowest line segment we just created and push it down a little bit here so that you can see what you're doing. We're going to slide then the set square along at that tight angle until we meet the next point, which is S in this case. We're then going to connect that up to our original line segment. We're going to then do the same thing with the top point of intersection on our construction line with the arc. So R in this case, and again up to the original line segment. Now it has been divided into 3 equal parts. Just to be sure, make sure you can check by measuring, and these 2 points also need to be given a label. So you're ready to go off and practice. You have some questions to do from the exercise. Good luck. Before you go, just for fun, why would Miss Foley never recommend that you start a conversation with pi? Well, because it will go on forever. Thanks for listening. See you in the next class.